good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid. A channel I'm creating not just to bring the awareness and the understandings around the reality of trauma. I really want to delve into, how it ticks and what I've learned over many, many years being around this stuff to try to help you guys create and learn the ways you need to actually heal. To create the understandings of why things are the way they are in the real world context, to empower them, improving the quality of your life. Now, this is the next video in the adoption series. And this one, it's still following on with understanding what we feel and what drives what we feel, how that drives our behavior. But it's also in a key understanding around the healing of infant trauma when you're coming from a removal base, of understanding one of the bigger roadblocks in healing the fog is when you look at infant trauma, when you look at early childhood and young child trauma, preverbal trauma, because it's in the developmental stages, when the nervous system is still creating its connections and its understandings, when the sectors of the brain are still developing and creating the sectors and interactions and so forth. When our body is in this place of learning, well, what world am I in? And how am I going to respond? Is when these bad things are happening. And it creates what I've talked about for decades, which is a functional free state. And it's now becoming a bit of a buzzword in the psych world, which is a good thing. I've spent decades trying to get it understood and been completely laughed at and ignored, but we put that aside. I'm glad that it's now starting to be understood of how preverbal early childhood and prolonged trauma states create a functional free state. Because if what's happening to us doesn't end our lives, we have to survive it. That survive it means that we enter out of a completely shut down state into a state of functional movement, whilst being in a trauma state. And this is the fog. This is everything around what the fog is in the world of adoption and the world of foster care. And all of us that have lived through it. And because of the developmental aspects of it, and because it happens whilst we're developing our connections and understandings and all the processes within our body, our nervous system doesn't learn how to release. It doesn't learn to cycle through fight, flight, freeze. I'm out the other side of it. Release the trauma. Relax. Rest and digest, and all the different terms I like to put to it. We don't get to that point. We just get fight, flight, freeze, function. That's it. So our nervous system never learns how to go into a relaxed and a release state, to rest and digest and heal and all these sorts of things. So our body in this functional free state has a very haphazard way of preparing itself. We learn to function with a far higher and constant cortisol triggering because we're in a high stress environment. The receptors on our cells and all that get used to having the higher ends of adrenocorticoid, steroids and cortisol and all these different hormones and things going through that are part of our defense mechanism. And that becomes a normal state of being. It doesn't release. As I've said in other videos, it's like putting a cork in the bottle and it goes in and don't come out. So what do? How we learn this stuff is when we're born in an ideal circumstance and we're placed in our mother's belly, skin-to-skin contact before the umbilical cord is cut, our biological mother, with the neuropheromonal interactions and connections, because the mother's endorphins are kicking in post-birth and everything else, her nervous system connects with the infant's nervous system and starts to guide and teach the infant's nervous system how to regulate back to safe and relaxed and connected. Much like learning to walk, you leave an infant to try to learn to walk without any adult interaction whatsoever. good luck. They develop some very creative ways of doing things. But when we have the adult guiding and here's the steps, feet balancing and hold them up using different things in different ways, the infant and the young child learns to walk. Well, our nervous system is the same. We need to be guided by the adults around how to regulate. And in the early childhood, it is done through connections to our biological family. It only works biologically at that point, to that degree, because of the same genetics. It doesn't work outside of that. Everything that comes from a non-biological standpoint, we have to learn how to interpret it. It comes in through a cognitive process. There isn't the plugs are different. There isn't that physical recognition or connection. And that's a difference that really needs to be grasped. This is no insult to those brilliant foster care parents out there that actually give a crap, or to the adoptive parents that do everything they can and they try. This is just the reality of the circumstance, of the situation. That everything that comes through verbally or even physical actions are interpreted when it's non-biological to infants and young children. They have to assess, is it safe? What's this? What part do you play? There isn't this natural pheromonal and neural connection that biological family have. So with that understanding, we learn through being guided by an adult's nervous system that knows how to regulate, to teach us as infants how our nervous system how to regulate. So cognitive therapies don't touch this stuff because talking has to be interpreted. It goes down different pathways. So we need to find a safe way for physical contact therapies, specifically targeting and shaped to access an infant's nervous system within an adult and teach it how to process and release the steps of going from a functional free state into rest and digest, into relax, and actually repetitively teach that. The difficulty lies because of the over-sexualization of Western society and modern society is it leads into that interpretation. The moment we cross into a sexualized area, it becomes predator-prey. Excuse me. That is how we are in the way and what it's the consequence of what our societies have created. In the competitiveness and everything around that sexualization and the marketing and all the stuff we do and we pump our brains with every day through billboards and commercials and everything, music and everything else. When we're looking to heal infant trauma, when we're looking to heal an infant nervous system within an adult body, the sexualization thing, it can't be part of it. It needs to stay on the path of a mother figure guiding an infant, a father figure supporting an infant. Now, somatics, if you have the resources to access it regularly enough and long enough, somatic-based therapies, yeah, they're over a long period of time, they can be quite beneficial. But the prohibitive nature is cost. You know, you need 4 or 5 sessions a week, every week for several years for this stuff to really work on this area. And it's just not viable. With older world ways, this is where, as I've said, the goal of understanding this is in the indigenous way of healing, of being held and touched by every member of a community for several months, 24/7. That is what is teaching the nervous system how to move through into safe and release and relax and so forth. We need to find ways to bridge the two. Now, I'm tempted to put up a little window here and show what it looks like when this gets accessed, but I'm also nervous in the context of how intense it can be perceived. And I'm not quite understanding what people have put up on YouTube, what is allowed to be used and what's not. But in a future video, I may just put one on there that you could choose to watch or not. But usually it's part of an ayahuasca, peyote, or a similar ritual. Because in the right context, I'm not saying just go out there and use this stuff. I'm saying it has to be structured in a therapeutic session by those that actually know what they're doing. And when you're looking at using traditional medicines, it comes from a traditional culture. Western people don't know this stuff. It is a culture that you are raised in, that you are born to be part of, that know this stuff. And we need to respect the old world medicines by respecting the cultures that they are part of. And we need to approach them the way they ask to be approached, not the way we demand. But we can use this as an understanding of what's needed. And maybe, like I've said with the MDMA and so forth, it can help get past the adult layers of our nervous system into the base infant responses to empower our ability to heal, and for somebody else's nervous system to be connected with ours through physical contact, so their nervous system can teach and guide ours how to process, to finish that step from threat to release. I have seen it happen within relationships, not very often, but I have. The closeness and interactions that people have in their own physical relationships, I have seen that happen. It can be done. That is the whole point of what I'm trying to say. It is possible, but we need to be aware. And we need to understand that we can try to bring this stuff to the surface all we want, but we also need to have a way for our body to release it. We need to learn how to, because we never did. And that's what this video is about. So when you look at therapies to start to work with the survival state around removal trauma and healing attachment trauma, they have to have a physical base, and it has to be a non-sexualized physical base. And it has to happen often and long enough for your nervous system to actually develop and process from the level of intensity that we have from infant trauma. As always, I hope these videos make sense, and I hope they're helpful. I love your guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, please be respectful, and I'll see you next time. Hope.